Hi everyone, I'm Anne-Marie from Soap Queen TV, and it's another episode of Ask Anne-Marie. You were so effusive and positive in your comments from the first Ask Anne-Marie episode we did that we decided to do it again. So we elicited questions on all the different social media channels. I haven't seen any of these questions. I'm gonna turn them over and read them, and you'll get the answers, well, without me rehearsing or even thinking about the answers first. So here we go. Kind of scared. Okay, Alta Frances asks, if I'm just starting to make soap, how should I start? Should I make cold process soap or melt and pour? It's a great question. There are many ways to enter soap making. I personally started with melt and pour and then graduated and went to cold process soap. It really depends on what your philosophy and your reason for getting into soap making is. If you're just looking for a creative endeavor, then melt and pour and cold process soap are great options for you. But if you're someone that really wants to control the ingredients and really wants to kind of make your mark with your personal values, and your personal values include things like organic or all natural, you might end up wanting to start with cold process soap making. And if you do that, my book, my last book on how to make natural soap is probably a great place for you to go. If you're looking for a more immediate, fun, gratifying project that, well, you get to use it right away, melt and pour is ideal. If you're crafting with kids, melt and pour is the way to go. So to answer your question, it really depends on what you're looking for out of your soap making. But either way, creativity is essential, and so I'm really glad you're getting started with soap making, no matter how you start. SoapQueen.com has tons of free tutorials too for both of those to help you start, whether you're a beginner or a slightly more advanced crafter. Okay, next question. Hila All Natural Soaps said, what do you think are the best things you can do to be successful online? That's a great question. I think that there's a lot of really great free options for you to amplify your message online. And so a few of those things involve, one, blogging. I think that that's essential. Google, which is the main search engine that most people use, really does value content. And so blogging helps you give your website relevancy. It also gives your customers a way that they can really connect with you in a deeper, more meaningful way. And it gives Google something to munch on content-wise to help get your site to have better relevancy and be higher up in the search engines. Two, I think you should always make sure that even if there's a new social media platform that you have no intention of using, get your handle on that social media platform. That means get your trademark name or whatever your brand name is. You don't need to use it. Just make sure that no one else can use it. You never know what's going to be the next Instagram or the next Twitter or the next Snapchat. And then three, and this also has to do with online social media tactics, it's very hard to boil the ocean. And that means that you don't need to be on all the social media channels. You just need to be the places that your customers are. So if your customers are primarily on Facebook and they're primarily asking you to email them with an opt-in newsletter that you have on your website, those are the things that are most important for you to really be focusing on. If they're not on Snapchat, you don't need to be on Snapchat. Just make sure to get your handle, of course. So really pick the three places you can be online, social-wise, and the places which are the places your customers are, and use that to connect with them rather than trying to do everything, right? You're a small business. You have a lot to do without trying to be on every single social media channel. So those are my kind of top three things right now for how to utilize online marketing tools to be successful. Katie Hopper, what is your scientific method for washing your dirty soap dishes? Oh, Katie, isn't that the bane of every single soap maker's existence? Washing those dirty dishes? I get it, right? Like, how can they be so messy? We're making soap. So there's two ways that I go about it. One, either I'll take a fresh, clean thing of paper towels and I'll, with my gloves on, wipe out my kind of messy, soapy dishes. And then you just throw that out. You throw the oily, soapy towels out. Then you use extra hot water, wearing dish gloves, and do like a Dawn dish detergent or one of those really chemically surfactant ones. They do break down the oil really well. Or two, if you have lots of soaping dishes, meaning multiple sets, you can actually let your soapy dishes sit there and harden because within 24 hours, they'll turn into soap. And so then they're lots easier to wash after just a few days because your dish is coated on the inside with actual soap. So you can do either. Since we turn our dishes over really fast here, meaning we are constantly doing projects and we can't ever have dishes sitting around, we do the first method, but both methods work equally well. CalmGirl100 says, how would you go about putting a melt and pour embed into cold process soap? Wouldn't the melt and pour melt when the soap starts to gel? CalmGirl100, that's a great question. I've done quite a few tutorials on soapqueen.com about how to do cold process soap and melt and pour soap together. One of them was called the Magma tutorial, and then we've also done embeds. Couple things to do. One, make sure you're using a low sweat melt and pour. And a low sweat melt and pour has less added glycerin, liquid glycerin added to it, which makes it harder, less clear, and has a higher melt point. So always use low sweat, or at Brambleberry we call it like cold process melt and pour. And then two, let that melt and pour embed sit out for a day or two just to kind of harden up a little, shrink any excess moisture from it, because any excess moisture from that embed is going to make the soap more naturally soft and more naturally susceptible to melting. And then of course three, try and keep those temperatures down. If you're soaping, mix your oils at 105 and your lye water at 105 instead of doing say 120 or 125 or 130. Also keep in mind that the spicier the fragrance oils or essential oils, the hotter the soap tends to get, because most of those oils contain a natural ingredient called eugenol, and that shoots the temperature up in your cold process soap making. So don't use spicy fragrance oils or essential oils. Keep those temperatures down and then use the light cold process melt and pour soap to help ensure that the embed doesn't melt. Rachel Monge, M-O-N-G-E, asks, I'd like to have a recipe for sensitive skin or hydrating your skin. I can do that. Rachel, I'm not sure if you're asking for soap or for lotion or for a toner, so I'm gonna go with soap. I love to make facial soap. I have 2 different facial cleansing bars at home right now, right beside where I wash my face. One of them's the charcoal tea tree bar that we've got on soapqueen.com, and another one is this really exquisite bar that I just made for myself and a few friends. And that particular one is calendula infused olive oil, and I did that at about 80%, and then the rest of the 20% was skin loving oils. And so the skin loving oils can be anything from shea butter to tamanu oil, that's a personal favorite of mine, to really any beautiful oil, like avocado oil would be great. The bar's a little soft, so keep that in mind. It takes a little bit longer for it to harden. I also make sure that when I'm doing facial soaps, my skin tends a little bit drier, and so I usually will do up between a 6 to 10% super fat. If your skin's a little more oily, you might not want to do that higher of a super fat. And then that particular bar, I have carrot seed essential oil in. It has a really earthy smell, but carrot seed essential oil has been used for years, like millennia, on kind of ancient, not the right word to describe my skin, but on kind of aging skin or more mature skin. So I love using carrot seed essential oil in my facial bar recipes. So those are the 2 kind of that I would look for, that charcoal recipe on soapqueen.com, or create your own using primarily olive oil that you've infused with calendula and then add some skin loving oils in there. Sonia Samson said, please, can you give us a list of magazines and books that you learned from? Yes, Sonia, I am a voracious reader, like insane reader. My goal is to read 52 books a year. Last year I clocked in at 56. And so right now the book that's really rocking my world is called The Obstacle Is the Way by Ryan Holiday. I love that book so much, highly recommend it. I also love The Motivation Manifesto by Brendon Burchard. Those are 2 that I've read in the last 6 months that have just really inspired me to always look for excellence in everything I do and surround myself with people that feel the same way. In terms of what I read magazine-wise, I subscribe to this magazine this app called Texture App. It's $16.99, and so you get every single magazine on the planet. So you get Time Magazine, Bloomberg Business, Inc. Magazine, all of those. But if I only had to pick 2 business magazines to read, it would always be Inc., I-N-C, so stands for Incorporated. So Inc. Magazine and Fast Company Magazine. Those 2 are fantastic for small business advice and inspiration, and really great interviews with entrepreneurs who are in the trenches alongside you. So you're not feeling like it's some guru or entrepreneur preaching to you from on high, but they're really right alongside you, struggling to build a business, struggling to find time to do it all, and wondering if what makes their life have meaning, and also searching for how to really have their community benefit from their business. So those are the two magazines I love to read. And I always have what I'm reading on the About Me page at thesoapqueen.com website. So it's all the way down at the bottom, and you can see exactly what I'm reading at that very moment in time. Sonia Samson, part 2. Well, thank you for asking 2 questions. I don't feel secure about fragrance oils. I'm wondering what they're made of, what the medium long-term effects they may have, what makes you comfortable with the use of fragrance oils. Do you know anything about their composition? It's a great question. As a really busy mom that feeds my kids mostly organic food, mostly gluten-free, mostly dairy-free, all of that stuff, I really care about ingredients. I care about what goes into my body, and I care about what goes on my body. And so I can totally understand your reticence to use anything that's synthetic. So fragrance oils are a mix of aroma chemicals, and that's a fancy word for basically raw materials that are taken into the lab, split apart, and then molecules are pulled out because of how they smell. So either 3,500 different aroma chemicals and or essential oils. Many of our fragrance oils, for example, have essential oils in them. For example, our Tangerine Surplus fragrance oil, we've carried it for a decade. It just went up in price like crazy. And when I researched it, I was like, why is this going up in price? It turns out it's because it's 98% tangerine essential oil. Like there's actually just essential oils in it. So fragrance oils can have essential oils in them, but the reason they're called fragrance oils is because they will have some sort of either nature identical component or a flat out aroma chemical in them. All of the ingredients that go into fragrance oils have extensive safety testing done for them. The International Fragrance Research Association does ingredient testing of the individual components in a fragrance oil. Then RIFM, the Research Institute for Fragrance Material Safety, they do a journal that's a peer-reviewed published journal that publishes those safety substantiations. From there's a committee that looks at all of that scientific data and determines whether it's safe to use and in what levels for what products. So for example, a product that's leave-on, say a sunscreen or a lotion, is going to have a different safety usage rate than a rinse-off product that's only in contact with your skin for 1 to 3 minutes. There's a variety of different classes that come from all of that determination, meaning there's different usage rates for, I think, about 11 different classes or maybe 15. So I feel comfortable using fragrance oils because they do have a very long history. They do have a huge amount of safety substantiation and scientific backing on them. And then also we're using them between 1 and 3%, 1 and 4% max in the products. And when it comes to the safety of me and my family, I really feel like the food I'm feeding them has so much of a greater and bigger impact. That said, I do take into account every single thing that goes on their skin, and my kids use soap and bath fizzies and all of that do have fragrance oils in them. If you're at all concerned about it though, you can always use essential oils. Just know that in Europe, essential oils, some of them have a more stringent regulations than in the United States, because some essential oils, people in the European Union has decided some of them are more skin irritating than fragrance oils. So it's kind of a balance of looking at the information and deciding what's right for you and your family. Kenzie Mitzner asks, I'm curious how adding colorants and fragrances affects the recipe you use when developing your own cold process soap recipes. Kenzie, when you're developing your own recipe, soap making is a science, right? This amount of oil plus this amount of water and lye turns into soap each and every time if you follow the steps. The things that really throw that off though are your fragrance, your essential oil, and your colorants. So you're right to ask that question. Fragrance oils and essential oils are not a fixed oil, meaning they don't bind with the lye water molecule to turn into soap. So therefore you don't take them into account at all when you're making your recipe up. Colorants can really do interesting things in your soap. They usually don't ruin your soap, but they often will turn a different color than what you're expecting because the pH of soap is so high when it's raw. It's up to 14, so that will often change your colorants. So when I'm looking at a recipe and I'm designing it, The fragrance oil and essential oil is an essential component to me of the creative aspect to it, but I don't take them into account when I'm designing the recipe unless the fragrance oil accelerates. Meaning, is this fragrance oil going to throw my scientific process into a much faster process and I'm only gonna have a little bit of time to work with it? If that's the case, I make sure I'm using slow moving oils, less coconut oil, less palm oil, less shea butter, less cocoa butter, not water discounting, and making sure my superfat's just a little bit higher. For colorants, I don't take them into account except from a design standpoint. Usually, those colorants are inert, meaning they shouldn't do anything to your soap. They might not turn the color you want, but it's pretty hard to make the colorant affect the outcome of the soap. It's pretty hard to make the colorant actually ruin your soap. Katherine Thomas asks, what does curing a soap mean? Why does that take 4 to 6 weeks? Can I use these soaps on my face? I want my soap to be ready right away too. I don't blame you for asking. So curing actually means drying out. Can you use the soap that you made right away, like the next day or when it's hard? You can. It's not going to be very gentle or skin loving, and it's going to really melt really quickly. There's a famous soap chemist called Kevin Dunn. He wrote a book called Caveman Chemistry. It's amazing. I love it because it really gets into the nitty-gritty science behind soap making. And he did a study at the college he teaches at that determined that almost 97% of the saponification reaction, meaning the reaction between the oils and your lye water to turn it into soap, as opposed to this crazy high pH and then an inert oil, 97% of that reaction happens within the first 24 hours, which means that the soap pH comes down dramatically from 14 to closer to 9, and it's not going to burn you. So why can't you use it right away? Well, that last 3%, that is what takes your 4 to 6 weeks. And you really want that soap to have evaporated out the water in order for your soap to last a long time. That's one of the reasons that soap makers sometimes do a water discount, is because they don't want that water in there to start with, and they know that the water is really only there to act as a carrier for the lye. It's not an essential component to your saponification and your soap making process. And so that's why the 4 to 6 weeks. And you asked, can I use these soaps on my face? Absolutely, you can use these soaps on your face. You can, you should, you do. Do it, yes. Make sure when you're doing facial soaps though that you're really taking into consideration the essential oils or fragrance oils you're using in them. Either use a very low level, and also no cinnamons, no peppermints, no wintergreens, nothing that really smells. I wouldn't even do eucalyptus. I wouldn't do anything that has any real menthol, because that's really going to irritate your eyes, your mucous membranes. And then when you're making these soaps for your face, be thinking, is this a gentle oil? Is this oil going to maybe clog my skin? For example, I don't use a lot of cocoa butter in my facial soaps because for me and my skin, it tends to kind of be a little clogging. But for other people that have more dry skin, they love cocoa butter facial soaps. So really take into account your skin type when you're formulating for facial soaps. And Handmade asks, I've always wanted to sell my soap, but there's so many soap makers on Etsy, the platform I need to start with. Can you give me some ideas of how I can stand out from the crowd? Handmade, you're right. There are a lot of soap makers, and I am so lucky because I get to work with, well, a lot of them, and I get to see their products and I buy from them, and I just fall in love with their packaging and their messaging. So the key to standing out from the crowd is niching down. And Leila Barker from Lucky Break Consulting talks a lot about this. She actually has a course called Brickhouse Branding where she really gets into how you hone your message. And I really think that honing your message is all about determining who you are and who you're not, who you're selling to, who you're not going to sell to. And so, for example, if you're going to, say your daughter loves ballet, you love dancing, all of that, you could have an entire line of products that was only designed to sell to ballerinas who needed foot balms and foot salves. And that was all you did. You decided that if they weren't a dancer, you weren't going to sell to them. Well, that certainly makes your marketing much easier because you know exactly who you're talking to. You can picture your customer, and you really can figure out what the best formulations for them are. So for every soap maker out there, they've all got their niche, whether it's I make fun and fruity products that I only sell to all of the theme parks across the nation, to I only make natural soaps that are made with camel milk, and that's it, because I know that camel milk is really the popular thing in paleo, and those are the only people I'm going for. There are so many different niches that is really the way that you stand out. And then the second way you stand out is, of course, your packaging, right? I can have the same exact bar of soap and I can package it 10 different ways, and it's going to appeal to a different audience. So when you're thinking about your packaging, are you really thinking about someone who wants to display your soap? Are you thinking about someone who really cares about the kind of simplicity, the minimalism? Are you someone that really loves patterns? Those things are all going to affect how you package your soap. So niche it out, really think about your packaging. And if you haven't looked at Leila Barker's blog, go read up on her blog. It's honestly, it's a college degree in just marketing and a crash course in that. And then if you're really interested, her Brick House branding course is fantastic. I had one of my team members take it last year and she got a lot out of it. All right, Hip Handmade, part 2. Thanks for asking another question. What is your favorite part about being a woman in business? So I don't really think of like women versus men or anything like that when it comes to business, though I will totally acknowledge that soap making and the do-it-yourself maker mentality does tend to attract women. And so I've really loved seeing this entire burgeoning group of micro entrepreneurs out there living life on their own terms and creating something, because handmade is best made, and then turning that knowledge plus their creativity and their passion into profits. That's been really exciting and really gratifying to see. When I started out, I feel like I got a little bit more discrimination when it came to banking. Like I couldn't get a loan to buy a building, even as I watched way less qualified businesses that were run by men get loans. I didn't feel like I could get taken seriously. That's gone away, really honestly, over the last 10 years. It is still something where you see that women tend not to run bigger businesses, and I'm not sure why that is. But overall, I really look at myself as an entrepreneur and don't see it really as a gendered pronoun either way. And I love being an entrepreneur because I love creating something out of nothing. I love creating jobs for people. I love creating opportunities for women to run their own businesses from their house on their own terms. They can be a mom, they can be a part-time soap maker, they can have a full-time job, they can do the soap making on the weekends. There's so many ways that this business creatively empowers women to take control of their destiny, that's the part I love most about being an entrepreneur. All right, you guys, those are all the questions we chose for this Ask Anne-Marie. And when I say we, I mean definitely not me, because my team really stuck some zingers in there for me. I hope you enjoyed it. We filmed on a really busy day today in the Brambleberry warehouse, and we don't usually stop shipping orders because you wouldn't want us to stop shipping orders. So if you heard some background noise, that's where that was from. If you like this video and want to see more, make sure you hit the subscribe button and the thumbs up. And remember, I really want to see your creations on social media. So when you are tagging me on Instagram and Twitter and putting stuff up on our Facebook wall, the hashtag BrambleOn is the one that I'm checking right now. And I want to see what you're creating. I want to see your creativity using our products. It makes me super happy and nothing delights me more. So you guys, thank you so much for watching. And until next time, happy soaping. Amanda, that was great.
It was a great question, though.